Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point, AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. Program is Focal Point Network, the American Family Radio Talk Network. Invite you to join the program if you'd like. Jump in on the conversation. 888-589-8840 is the number to call. We were talking about Barack Obama and his big push for environmental policies to stem the to deal with the non-existent problem of global warming. Remember, it's been 17 years now and 5 months with no global warming whatsoever. A leading Japanese climatologist is now predicting that we are entering into a period of global cooling. This is something we've talked about here before. Global warming, fancy that, seems to be related to solar activity. Where does heat come from? Comes from the sun. More solar activity, higher the temperatures on Earth. Makes perfectly good sense. A first grader can understand it. And that seems to be the largest driver of global temperatures is naturally the heat coming from the sun. And we're entering into a period, what's called a solar minimum, where there are just less sunspot activity, less solar flares, all the solar activity, the things that project heat and energy toward the Earth. We're going into a period where that's going to be at a diminished level, and that typically is accompanied by a period of global cooling. So we could be heading actually in the opposite direction. Now remember Barack Obama, this guy's Mr. Separation of Church and State. He doesn't want his Department of Justice, if you're going to mention God in the youth program, you don't get any money from the federal government. But when it suits Barack Obama, you can forget all about the separation of church and state. Listen to this, clip 14. Listen to Barack Obama talking about what he wants Americans to do for him.
Americans are not a people who look backwards. We're a people who look forward. We're not a people who fear what the future holds. We shape it. What we need in this fight are citizens who will stand up and speak up and compel us to do what this moment demands. Understand, this is not just a job for politicians. So I'm going to need all of you to educate your classmates, your colleagues, your parents, your friends. Tell them what's at stake. Speak up at town halls, church groups, PTA meetings. Push back on misinformation. Speak up for the facts. Broaden the circle of those who are willing to stand up for our future.
Okay, so there's Barack Obama. I'm counting on you students to inform your parents. Your parents are misguided. They are medieval. They are Neanderthals. They are living in the middle of the 18th century. You, children, you must, under my orders, instruct your parents. And don't forget to take this message into your churches. This is just as important as the gospel of Jesus Christ. You talk about this in your churches. You can forget all about that separation of church and state nonsense when it comes to something that I care about, and that is my global warming agenda. Now let's think I just lost my server, Rob, to my call screener software. Let me check and see if I can reopen that so I can take some of these phone calls. Let's see if we can open that back up. It's cranking as we speak. And Jeff, let's grab that soundbite from Texas while we're waiting to see what happens here.
All right.
We were talking about this battle for the sanctity of life. Governor Perry, hardcore pro-lifer. He's the real deal, ladies and gentlemen. He's called a special session of the Texas legislature just in order to pass pro-life bills. As Jeff walked us through, the protesters, there was a long filibuster, and they pushed the session past midnight when the legal authority for the legislature to be in session expired. And conservatives, we believe in playing by the rules. So even though the pro-life bill was voted on, it was voted on after midnight because of the interruption from the protesters, because of this filibuster. The filibuster's fine. I got no beef with that. That's playing by the rules. But this noise in the gallery, this ruckus in the gallery, this disruption of the legislative process, that also contributed to the vote taking place late. And the Speaker the Senate pro tem, the President pro tem of the Senate said, look, this vote now legally doesn't count. We believe in playing by the rules here, and so this vote does not count. This bill does not pass. And that's why Governor Perry said, look, we're pro-life here in the state of Texas. I'm pro-life. We're going to bring it back, and we're going to give the legislature an opportunity now, 30 days, to get this thing pushed through. And so the Occupy Texas folks showed up. The Occupy the Womb folks showed up. and they started chanting, and the pro-lifers showed up, and Jeff's got a little bit of audio of how the pro-lifers responded. Now, you got to listen carefully here, because where the microphone is positioned, it sounds like the protesters were making more noise than the pro-lifers, generating more sound. But from a neutral standpoint, it was the pro-lifers and their response that actually resonated in the halls of the state capitol. Let's listen. Listen carefully to hear Amazing Grace in the background.
Yeah, from what people were saying is that the Amazing Grace drowned out the protesters.
Yeah. Well, and you hear that, and you see what the opposition is doing. The people that are the pro-death crowd, they're chanting, they're being disruptive, they're being obnoxious, they're making noise. The pro-lifers are singing a hymn of praise and gratitude to God. Couldn't illustrate the difference more dramatically than that. Quick question, Jeff. Let's see. I guess maybe it looks like my software maybe is back up. So let's see if we
go to Mary first.
Okay, let's see if we can grab a call. Let's go to Mary, Huntsville, Texas. Mary, welcome to Focal Point with Brian Fisher. What's on your mind?
Oh, I hope Governor Perry wins, and I hope all of Texas wins because, I think those people are so cruel. But what I was going to say was we are going to get taxed to death on climate change or whatever. In the meantime, he's telling Africa that we're going to give them $7 billion.
Yeah.
They're going to tax it, take it from us, and give it to somebody else. Is you at that Obamacare, immigration, and the Obamacare and immigration is going to crush us in itself. But if you were to add that onto it, this man is doing it on purpose, and you can cut me off if you want, but that's what I think. And that's all. Thank you.
Well, listen, okay, Mary, I appreciate that. And grab clip 5, if you would, Rob. This is President Obama in Africa lecturing them about their carbon footprint. Realize this is a man, I'm looking at a piece here from Right Wing News by William Teach, and the conservative estimate on Barack Obama's personal carbon footprint is 41,000 metric tons. That's what the greenhouse gas emissions that he belches into the air with his round-the-world plane trips and his fancy pants vacations and his flights on helicopters to go play golf and that whole deal. 41,000 metric tons he contributes of greenhouse gases. Now, I don't believe they do anything to raise temperatures, but everybody says they do. He says they do. So he's just a hypocrite. He's belching out 41,000 metric tons of this stuff, the biggest carbon footprint probably in the history of mankind. And he has the audacity to lecture us about our carbon footprint. Now, his trip to Africa, that's going to belch several hundred tons of CO2 into the atmosphere. You look at South Africa where he was, the average emissions per capita in South Africa, 10 metric tons. His carbon footprint, 41,000 metric tons. The world average is about 4 tons. His footprint, 41,000 metric tons. For continental Africa, because they're backwards and undeveloped, their average is around 2 tons. So the continent of Africa's got about 14% of the world's population, but only 3.6% of its emissions. So here is what President Obama, this is the 41,000 metric ton carbon footprint guy, talking to people that have a carbon footprint of 2 metric tons per year. Here's what he had to say, clip 5.
Ultimately, if you think about all the youth that everybody's mentioned here in Africa, if everybody's raising living standards to the point where everybody's got a car and everybody's got air conditioning and everybody's got a big house, the planet will boil over unless we find new ways of producing energy.
That's Barack Obama. You can't have energy. You can't have electricity because if you do, the planet will boil over. It's your fault. You cretins are belching 2 metric tons of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere a year. I, all by myself, am contributing 41,000 metric tons, belching it into the atmosphere. But you, if we try to alleviate your problem, we can't do it because the planet will boil over. A lot of compassion in that from the president. Let's go to Hector in Florence, South Carolina. Hector, welcome to Focal Point. What's on your mind?
Hi, Brian. I hope you and your family have a good July 4th coming up.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Listen, I don't have much time to talk, I know. Listen, connect the dots. I'm sure you have, but it's not about climate change. It's not about any of that. You know, you can just ignore that and let him talk until his head falls off. It's all about a power grab. If he can break us financially across the country, that's a good excuse for government dependence right there in itself. So you can't believe what comes out of this two-faced, lying, whatever you want to call him, president, or the environmentalist. The environmentalists, it's all about a power grab. They want to control what they want to control. It's not about the environment with most of them. If they really cared about the environment, they'd treat it like the Indians treated the environment years ago. And, you know, it's all about the money. And if the president can break us financially with this tax and that tax and Obamacare and all that, then he's got us right where he wants us, where we have to be dependent on him, us poor people, that is, and he's got his way. So,
yeah. Well, that's a good observation, and it really is ultimately about control. I appreciate the call, Hector. Thank you for that. And, you know, one of the issues of control that you may or may not be aware of, but there is a movement now to install thermostats in your house that the government controls. I'm looking for the stories. I've got a couple of them in the stack here. Here's one from the UK. Here we go. Bureaucrat-controlled thermostats on the way. Absolute control of every aspect of your existence. Honeywell is making a thermostat the government can put it in your house, and they can control when your air conditioner and heater come on and off. Focal Point AFR Talk.
American Family Radio, AFR Talk.